When you see the homes of innocent people being destroyed, who do you side with? The victims, the ordinary people who suffered needlessly, or the ones responsible for that suffering? That is a question that many of us should be asking ourselves right now. Not just as we read our stories for fun, but as we watch what's happening in the world right now. One Piece is, as usual, not neutral in these matters, and if you'll forgive me for the awkward transition from politics to discussing something as comparatively unimportant as paneling, the framing of the opening scene in One Piece chapter 1099 is a perfect example of how One Piece uses its visuals to pull us into a perspective. We are shown the homes being burned over the shoulders of the survivors. We're on their side, we're with them, and see the horror as they do, while King Bakori is shown from the opposite angle, against him. Of course, that doesn't mean every close-up of a face is meant to put us against the character. Tools like this are more about how they're used. It's the contrast with the panel before, the flipping of angles, that paints Bakori as the villain. The next panel contrasts the one above in a different way. Before, we were close to the townspeople, and could directly see their burning homes. By using the same angle, yet massively increased distance, the next panel shows the difference in perspective the rulers of the country have. They can't make out the houses, much less the ordinary people, viewing it from so far away that it's just trash to them. You can also compare how that first shot was close enough that we could see the concerned, scared posture in all the people as they watched their homes being burned, humanizing them, while the second shot just so happens to not make the perpetrators of the crime feel human at all because we don't see them from close enough. Zooming out to a similar but more distant shot also helps us smoothen the transition from the village to the palace. Once again, we are behind the ordinary people as they storm the palace, with momentum just a little bit to the left. Seeing a man then knocked to the right gives us the correct feeling of him being repelled. It's against our sense of momentum. And finally, Kuma is shown head-on as well, for he may be on the right side, but he's also fighting like a demon here. We aren't within his perspective or meant to feel just like him, we're looking at him like the ordinary people do. I like how the page starts and ends with Kuma. At the beginning, he's being told that he's done enough. Then we spend the rest of the page seeing exactly why he has not done enough, that none of this is acceptable, and that's exactly why he then has to do more. The brief action sequence on the next page places us right in the middle of the fight, looking up at Kuma and looking down at Bakori. The fact that we look at Bakori from above is a nice contrast to how often he's framed looking down on people. And of course, Kuma's raised arm means our eye is moving down with it as it travels down to the final panel of the page. I have harped on long enough in my last few videos about how visual One Piece's powers and storytelling are, so I won't ramble on about that again, but it bears repeating how everything happening here, the localized damage, is intuitively understandable because of how One Piece has visually established how Kuma's powers work. Beyond that, there is some great composition here. A circle drawing us to the center, while the clouds and the slightly curved perspective below all emphasize it further. We're even pushing the dark clouds to the side, away from the center, as Kuma is literally bringing the light back to the kingdom. There's some nice comparative imagery, if you could call it that, as we go into the next page, and we use the exact same camera angle as in the impact shot to show the same place and how it's been destroyed, but is being rebuilt. We're using the art to show progress, change, and rebirth. Yet we're also using this panel to show the kind of leader Kuma is by contrasting the imagery of the palace with the simple church he still lives in. This next page leaves me in an interesting position, referring mostly to the page on the right here. One thing I want to avoid is talking about the same things every video, yet this page happens to use some of the exact same principles I've been talking about in my videos on chapters 1097 and 1098, which leaves me with almost nothing new to add. So go check out those videos and see what I talk about there, and see if you can figure out how this page uses the same things, or even skip the videos and just try and figure it out on your own. The page after that on the left here has some fun new things though. It's another great example of how to achieve comedic build-up and timing through paneling. We show Bonnie trying to become old, then establish that someone is at the door through two careful shots, one too distant to see who it is, and the other too close, before then giving us a reaction shot that something happened, and then a reveal of Bonnie, or rather, Connie, before we then see Bonnie. The order of things within the panel gives a sense of timing because the eye is traveling from right to left and sees Connie before it sees Bonnie. There's a sense of comedic timing simply through the order of things on the page. I also like how it's a totally visual punchline. It's so much funnier just because we see Connie hanging there limp, without the energy to do anything about her situation. The comedy carries through even as the story progresses. This panel is simultaneously a close-up of Bonnie and Bulldog as they have an important conversation, and a wide shot as Kuma and his friend continue to freak out about Connie. I've spoken before about how wide shots are good for comedy while close-ups are more serious, and this is both at once. This is an example of one of my favorite uses of manga as a medium, the ability to have small moments. Whether it's a narrow panel for a quick joke, or a gag stuck in the corner of another panel, they don't have to break the flow or tone of everything going on because size is used to show that they aren't that important. Look at the little thread through the next page. Bonnie is trying her hardest to Connie's amusement, then she's becoming an adult, and then on the following page, she's finally an old lady. And we even have a little corner where Bulldog remarks upon Kuma making the same mistake again. Anime adaptations tend to struggle with moments like this, and not just in One Piece. There is no reason that a well-produced, well-directed, and well-paced anime can't have these exact moments happen in the background of other shots. But I've often seen adaptations blow up little moments like this to full size and ruin their simple appeal. Especially in an adaptation as slow-paced as One Piece's, they usually jump to the opportunity to fill a minute or two with something like this, rather than let it be small. Now, I love the shot of Kuma's ship against Bakori's armada, in part because it reminds me of chapter 588, where Sabo's ship was dwarfed by the arriving world government ship. There's a similar dynamic in both about a lone revolutionary going up against the world, and Kuma here almost feels like a redemption, conceptually avenging Sabo and what happened to him. I like the restraint in having only a small panel of destruction, as what happened here is so much less important to Kuma than saving Bonnie. It's fun how it leaves it ambiguous exactly what happened here, yet we know that this is the wreck of Bakori's ship, not Kuma's. The next 2 pages are full of careful scene-to-scene panel transitions. Some of you can probably guess from me saying that I just finished reading more of Scott McCloud's work. Now, just pointing out that there are scene-to-scene transitions doesn't automatically make it good. That is a descriptive term, but it doesn't say anything about the quality. Repeated scene-to-scene transitions can be jarring if misused, and so it's important to follow up each concept in a natural way. We see Kuma arriving at Torino Kingdom, and then talking to the people there. We see Kuma arriving at Kuragaina Island, being attacked, and then what he does to repel that attack. And then we see him asking for help again. At this point, we get the idea that he's going from place to place asking to help, so now we don't need the traveling shots before each one. So instead, this panel row has 1 traveling shot and then 3 shots of him asking for help. Need I even mention that the visual nature of One Piece's locations allows us to instantly recognize these places as places that the Straw Hats were sent after Sabaody. It's also very deliberate how Kuma's ship is always pointing to the left, matching how he's always moving forward. And yet when Dragon's ship arrives, it comes to him from the right because it's coming from a different direction that he didn't expect, in the conceptual sense along with the literal. And after his conversation with Dragon, his ship is now pointing to the right, showing that he is now returning home and he is on a different plan than he was before, which matches again how he's facing right when he returns to Bonnie. Now, if I had to say what is the best page in this chapter, it's the first one. The use of the artwork to convey an important message about empathy in times of oppression and suffering is what we come to One Piece for, I think. But at the same time, if I have to talk about what is the most impressive page from a technical paneling standpoint, it would be this one on the left here. The way that our eye is going diagonally down, as it goes from one panel row to the next, is used for 4 different things. It's the direction that Dragon's fist is moving in as he bumps it into his chest. It's the direction that Bonnie's punch is going in as she trains. It's the direction Kuma is looking in as he comes in and sees his daughter. And it's the direction that Bonnie is looking in as she doesn't see Kuma, so that we can then have her turn around and see him on the left. And I think a clever panel like that is where I will end this week's analysis. There are a few clever details left in the last few pages of the chapter, so let me know in the comments if there's anything you think is cool in those. I make videos about One Piece's paneling every week on chapters new and old, so if you want to see the next one, subscribe. And if you agree with Bonnie's shirt and live to eat, then give this video a like. Bye bye.